Maybe last but not least, Dr. Mo Ibrahim, some would say, made all your money from the continent. How was the climate then? And from where you're seated now, do you think it has improved?
I think it's improved a lot. I mean, I think when we started mobile operations, the incumbent telecom companies always looked at us as pirates or some kind of criminals coming to take business for them, and it is so ridiculous that we end up being the largest operator. We have 80% of the customer. In some countries, with BT only have 20%, and still we are treated as a foreign company. And the local, you know, it said to the president, without me, you have no phone, you know. And it took time for people to appreciate that the private sector can be really part of the domestic scene and they do something helpful. So things change a lot. Banks changed a lot. When we started our operations here, banks will not touch us. Banks will not give us. We built all our operations here by equity. You know, any telecom company raises 60% of its finance, you know, through loans with 40%, typical 60-40 kind of ratio. We were 100% funded by capital because banks don't do Africa. These things are changing. So definitely the environment is improving a lot. And also what President Makaba led the initiative for the investment climate facility also helped really quite a lot in Africa. And it's a pity that African businesses did not support you actually. But you forgot that we were the first guys to support you. Really, you forgot that. You sent me Nayar Fitzgerald, and I gave him $3 million. And then you wanted a businessman to run the operation. I gave you my chief operating officer, correct? So some African businesses supported you, but unfortunately not every, because that was important. Yeah. But let me tackle this from a slightly different angle. There is, in my view, the main constraint for investment in Africa come under two categories. The first category has been touched by my colleagues here, and I don't want to repeat. That was excellent summary of what is happening. And customs, red tape, all that stuff, infrastructure, etc. But there's another major problem which we need to think of, actually, which I think is actually more serious than the other one. And that is how Africa is perceived by the financial market. How the guys with the money, the funds, the investors, how those people perceive Africa. What they think about Africa, what they know about Africa. That is a major problem Africa has. Africa has a bad reputation, full stop. Okay? People need to understand that. And we try to find why Africa had a bad reputation. And believe me, the problem is we sit in this room, we know each other, we are nice people, etc. But, you know, we don't think anything wrong. But from the guys out there in Seattle or in Frankfurt or somewhere, they perceive this as a dangerous continent run by dictators. All people there are thieves, and if they are not thieves, they are killing each other. Really, there is a bad heritage of perception of Africa. Everywhere I go to in Europe, when I speak, you talk about leaders, and I ask everybody, people who knows Bokassa, raise their hands. People raise their hands. People who know Abasha, raise their hands. Everybody raise their hand. People who know Omar Bashir, everybody raise their hand. I say, okay, who knows Festus Mukhai? You look at each other. Nobody knows Festus Mukhai. Nobody knows Shisano. Nobody knows Perez. These are wonderful African leaders who took their countries from poverty to middle-income countries. And rule of law, it's amazing. But somehow, and we had a running big argument with, actually, you guys think our work here in Africa, most of our work actually out there, honestly. We had a big running battle with CNN, BBC, France 24, Al Jazeera, every of those guys, and we told them, guys, you are not presenting Africa as it is. You know, this is not out of a devious plan. Nobody has a conspiracy against Africa, none of those guys. The problem they have 30 minutes for international news, right? By the time you talk about the problem in Mali, the problem in Boko Haram, violence in Somalia, it is finished. Then they have to move to other, because they cannot give you more than 2 or 3 minutes of their politics. But please let me finish.
Okay.
Because people need to understand that is a very important issue for us.
It is, but I want to ask you and challenge you on that issue. What you are telling me is an issue of perception. What you are telling me is we are not telling our own stories. What you are telling me is Africa does not have its voice.
Yeah.
So where are the Mo Ibrahims of this world who are pumping in money into the Al Jazeera of Africa that then can perpetuate our own story?
Right. But I'm saying, if
yes,
those guys,
the perception issue.
Yes, they changed over time. Because we had with the meeting with the editorial boards, with people, and they're good people. Mm-hmm. And now every of these organizations have Africa programs. Any one of these has African programs. And we mentioned Bloomberg now have platform for Africa. Yes. BBC have Africa. CNN, Inside Africa, Voices of Africa. Africa, you know, everybody now has started to present because we had to put pressure on those people. We said, if you are a media, you need to be neutral. I don't use to come and say, oh, Africa is wonderful. Africa is not wonderful. Africa, like every place, has some wonderful things and has terrible things. Just put a mirror. Okay? That's all what we're asking. Be objective. So there is this issue of perception of business. And that translates also in ignorance. For example, Merrill Lynch produced a report 2 years ago. This is not us. Merrill Lynch is a financial institution. And they looked at how the financial markets are looking at African companies and other people. And they came up with very interesting things. They said, okay, if you are a listed company with the same market cap, same value, if you are African, if you are Indian, and if you are Chinese, how will you be covered by reporting from the financial houses, the banks? You know, the banks produce reports about each, the listed companies, because investors read this and invest. What they found out, if you are a Chinese company of the same market cap, same size, you are covered 13 times more than your peer African company. 13 times more. If you are Indian, you are covered 15 times more. So, if there is ignorance in the financial markets about businesses of the same market cap about what's going in Africa, how investors are going to invest in you? They don't invest in that. So that's also another issue. The lack of coverage of what's going in Africa. Then, how we're going to get out of this? We need to really, I think we keep beating ourselves. One thing I really hate when our people say, oh, let us offer tax exemption for people to get investors here. Let us clean up their shoes. Let us clean their windows. No, you don't need to do that. You need just the people to know that Africa is a good investment place. That's it. Because those guys will run to come and do it. Don't have that race to the bottom where we offer tax holidays to every Tom, Dick, and Harry. Why? You don't do that. Yes, you need to give infrastructure, you need to make it easy through the ports, through customs, etc. That's all what you need. Yeah. Those guys come, they know they have a good business. You have a good business, you pay tax. Because you know what? When you pay tax, you're making a profit. Nobody pays tax on losses. So we really need to stop this race to the bottom about exempting. This is our money. You guys are wasting it. What you need is to get the right picture out there about what is happening really in Africa. The perception of Africa need to change. Unfortunately, every Christmas, I watch the television, I live in Europe. And all what I see, sick children, people in camps, because Oxfam is raising money. So what are you going to show? They're going to show our Ethiopian runners winning the marathon. They go show our guys jumping, or no, they show sick people. And that's unfortunate, because the perception of people. Look, as a kid, and I'm very ashamed of this, I was living in Africa as a kid. My perception of Africa came from Tarzan movies. Right?
Yeah.
So we are brainwashed by our media and what we see. So that's an issue we need to do.
These are challenges you've raised.
We need to face those guys head on this. We do that by engaging with the European media. The European media is not our own media, because our media, nobody will read it in Europe. But it's European media, and this is happening. European media now and American media are becoming really a reasonable platform to show up. That is good. One thing we need to publicize, which we totally ignore, is that the rule of law of Africa is quite reasonable, actually.
Yeah.
And with apologies to my Chinese friends and my Indian friends, I think the rule of law in Africa is better than China and is better than in India. The rule of law here. In my business, I took... No, please, I'm not looking for... we talk facts.
Yes.
I took 3 governments to court in their own countries, to local courts, in major disputes. Okay? Some of them because a regulator or telecom who did not read our agreement and did something stupid, or a case where the vice president of the country took some money from somebody and tried to do something stupid. And we took the governments to court. In the 3 times, we won. 3 countries in Africa, and sub-Saharan Africa. Every time we win our cases, first vice president actually got dismissed. I don't want to mention name. He was dismissed. Can you do that in China? Can you do that in India? Ask Vodafone about their trouble in India. In China, I don't want to go to China, but I invested in a telecom company in one of the with China resources. Only for Chinese company to come later a country to say, government to say, oh, we cannot allow foreign investors in telecom industry, and here is your money back. Excuse me, I built a company. Here is your, okay, we'll give you 10% interest. That's what they did to us. Can I take Chinese government to court? I cannot. People need to understand that. And that's what Africa needs to tell people. The most important thing for an investor is rule of law. Your law has to be clear, stable, and I know exactly what is my right, what is your right. That is the most important thing for investors. And we need to make that clear, and that's what we need.
I'll stop you there a little bit, Mr.